It's Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 176. My name's John Kelsey. I'll be your moderator today. I'm going to put my email on the screen on the recording, so those of you on YouTube who want to get in touch with me and get in our list can do that. Our club's up to about 105 or 106 members, so everybody on that list gets an invite, and we have about another 100 people who've asked to be on the Coffee Hour list, and we keep on sending them invites, and some of them show up. Coffee Hour is free. You don't have to be a member of Lancaster Club, but it is dues season in Lancaster, and I'm the outgoing treasurer, so I'm kicking it off. Dues are $30 a calendar year. If you join now, you're covered through the end of 2024. So those of y'all who really enjoy Coffee Hour and don't belong to Lancaster Club and keep coming back here week after week, you might consider joining up. But you can keep coming back even if you don't. Let me see. Take this. I got a bunch of things I wanted to tell you about, and since I'm sitting here, I'm going to do that. I've been playing with the Osmo finish, and these are all finished with Osmo top oil clear satin. This one has one coat put on off the lathe, and it looks, and then I buffed it gently. I buffed the outside of it on a wheel, and I buffed the inside with Scotch-Brite. I think that the one with two coats applied on the lathe, this one, came out better, but the difference is hardly visible. This is the first piece I put it on. This is a figured Purple Heart, which I just love. I got another chunk of it to play with. So this is two coats of Osmo top oil put on, as Stu Bremner suggests, buffed in hard on the lathe. And then I put some water in it to see what would happen. And the sheen is gone from when it was wet. It's still a nice finish. But I really wonder how durable it's going to be. People say it's going to be real durable, and I'm going to test that out with some of this stuff I'm making. And this is two coats on cherry, buffed and waxed on the outside, and just straight off the machine on the inside, not buffed. Just applied two coats, 24 hours drying in between, and this has sat around about a week. This is a pretty hard finish. It's pretty nice, but I'm going to have to use it with utensils to see how it does. So before I go on, anybody want to talk about that Osmo finish some more, or tell me what their experience with it has been, or anything like that?
So I had more of a question, John. Which one did you use? There are different ones available with different levels of sheen.
Osmo top oil with clear satin. I couldn't find the gloss. I'm going to decant it into a stop loss bag, and then I can tell what the solids are and how it settles out. And there might be, a glossier mix at the top of the bag, but I usually think it's better to mix the whole thing, not to fool around with the chemistry of it.
There is a gloss formulation available too. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I was looking for that. I couldn't find it. Do you know where it is? Amazon don't have it. Maybe Rockler does. I don't know.
I don't remember who I bought mine from, to tell you the truth.
Okay, well, now that I know you got it, I'll go for it. The other thing we've been talking about is handles for scrapers, where we have been, or some of us have been. These are, do we see this? Where the hell am I? Here, yeah. These are the handles I make. They're a glue up. I start with a piece of cherry about 5/8 thick by about 1.25 inches wide, 1.5 inches wide. And then I lay the blade on it and arrange pieces of cherry that are the same, just a little dab thicker than the blade. I just mill up a whole bunch of this stuff. Here, let me get it here. Yeah, I mill up a whole bunch of this stuff, and it's a little bit thicker than the blade. So I can lay up strips and chunks of this on top of that bottom stable piece, and glue that down, and then leaving a cavity, of course, exactly for the blade to come in about 2.5 inches, like that. So once I've done that, I glue that layer up using the top piece to come as a caul, and I get a glue up like this one. You can see the layers on this one. This was some pretty crappy wood I had laying around, but I needed to make a handle for this guy. This is, I'm been watching enough Richard Raffin videos to believe I need to get back into regular scrapers and away from these kind of pussy little negative rake things. So I'm sorry I said that, excuse me. So So I'm going to glue this in here and use this as its handle. And so I found that a pretty effective way of making a pretty good handle in not much time and not using very much wood. So I'm going to find out about scrapers. Now, along with that, here's another style of handle, by the way, that I make doing the same thing, the same technique. Gee, I'm having trouble keeping this in the camera. Now here I am. This has
Take it back, put toward the table more, John.
yeah. This is this whole handle has an opening all the way through it, and it's a little bit sloped, and it's marked where the blade rests. So now I can use this double. I thought I could use it double-ended, and I can't with this tool. I mean, I can't have it slide out the other end of the handle. But this just goes in here, and then I got a little wedge, a little rosewood wedge that tucks in there. So that works out okay as a handle too. But I find the wedge is in the way. And it's a little, I'd rather have it glued in. So I've been making duplicates of my Boxmaster tools with the tool steel from Amazon. So that's why I'm making all these handles. So then I watched Barry discuss this thing. This is I bought this based on Barry's report. This is what Veritas sells for raising a burr on scrapers. And it does work, and it's been recommended. Dale Larson highly recommends it as well. And I'm going to probably mount it on a block and keep it around. But to tell you the truth, I find that this works better for me. This is a carbide, 3/8 carbide rod that I got from Alan Lacer. And again, just mounted in a handle. In this case, I think he sent a ferrule along with it, so I used his ferrule. And I find that raises the best burr and gives me the most control. Better than using the other thing. You do it like this. You get your thumb on here and you get your hand on here and take a real good press.
Go away.
We've got pretty good grip strength. So that's what I do to raise the burr.
Does that last longer than just taking it straight off the grinding wheel?
Yeah, it does. What you do, and take the spotlight off me so I can get back to a.
Okay.
It's me. I got to change cameras. That's what I got to do.
There you go. There you go, John.
It gives you a finer burr. I don't know that it might be a little stronger, but it's more consistent and finer. So it doesn't fracture as easily as the big ones.
Yes. I also find it does last longer, but it's a much cleaner burr. So you got to stone the grinder burr off, and then you can also renew that burr a couple of times, or at least I do. I don't know if you're supposed to, but I find you generally can.
John, with the idea of using that Veritas thing to raise the burr, I bought a Rockler device that they sell for card scrapers. Yeah. And I have that mounted in a vise, and that works. And I've been using that, and that has worked very well for doing the same thing. And I think it's a lot cheaper than that Veritas. I think I paid like $15 for it. And it's also real nice it has files on it and a variety of things for actually doing a card scrape.
This thing
and
here.
I've made one of those out of a drill bit and just glued the twisted part into the handle.
That's what we used to do for card scrapers, but that drill bit's not hard enough for this tool steel, I don't think. This is actually carbide, but it was expensive, I gotta say.
Yeah, carbide's a nice idea.
Say again?
John, I have a couple of 3/8. The one I made was using 1/4-inch diameter carbide, but I do also have some stubs of 3/8 and 1/2-inch carbide that could be used in like the tool you were handling. Just bury the cutting flutes in the handle.
That would work. That would work really well.
How about if you go to a machine shop that's rebuilt engines, get an old valve stem?
Do you think a valve stem is harder than the high-speed steel that we get?
I think it's pretty damn close, John.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think it's kind of close. I think it's like you got to get something a little harder than the steel. I'm not sure the valve stem is any harder than the tool steel bit.
I think valve stems are case hardened. They're not. It's not the steel. They're case hardened.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I've used shock absorbers for point tools, and they work great. You just sharpen them once in a while.
Yeah.
And case hardening is better. Is that what you're telling me? I'm sorry, I'm a little ignoramus on
No,
that.
it's case hardening is only a surface effect. So we did it in shop with the screwdriver, I think it was we made. And I forget the powder you put on it and then heated it with a torch and it,
Yeah,
you know.
we used to fool around with that too. Anybody else on the whole question of scrapers and tool handles and stuff like that? Who's down here? That's John Wilson.
John, back to that oil. Was that that Osmo, was that a paste that you apply or do you brush it?
No, it's you put it on with a paper towel. It's not watery. It's thick, but it's not thick, droopy thick. It's thinner than glue.
Is it like Odie's oil or?
I think it probably is. I wouldn't be surprised. Odie's oil is pretty similar stuff. Does anybody know the answer to that? Is Odie's oil different from?
You know what we need is a retired chemist that will look up all these and do a listing from the MSDS or whatever to show us how much what kind of oil and whether it's got a varnish in it and how much is mineral spirits or whatever.
You mean Bruce Lamb, do you?
Yeah, well.
The problem is that most of them don't list a lot of the ingredients. If you go to the MSDS, you'll find general things, but they don't really disclose their formulation in a lot of cases. They'll give a general chemical class. I think the Odie's oil is a lot of wax, if I remember right, but they do tell you a few things. I'll take a look and see what I can find out for next time.
That'd be great.
There will be a bunch
Osmo
of
did a webinar just a week ago at Exotic Woods here in Burlington, and the rep talked about they have a whole bunch of different waxes that they use. It's not carnauba, it's different nut oils, and the solvent they use is something up in the heptane kind of range. It's very evaporative. It's not as heavy as mineral spirits, and he actually had a lot of details. I don't think it's available as a YouTube thing. I don't know. I'll have to check and see. But it was pretty informative. I sat in for about an hour.
Did he say what you could thin the stuff with if you wanted to thin it?
Oh, that would be a no-no. Everybody I know, I remember we were introduced to it about 5 years ago. It was brought into Canada, I think, before the States. And we had the manager as a demonstrator at the club long before COVID. It was a couple of years before COVID. And people started using it, and I have never heard a negative comment about any of the products. And a couple of the people that sell it here are selling it to the flooring trade. I mean, that's where it came from, is for floors and decks. The outdoor stuff is awesome, apparently. I haven't bought it because I just don't do enough to justify paying $60 a pint for the stuff. And boiled linseed oil is my favorite finish on cherry. They'll take it to my grave.
It's totally different than Odie's oil. I made a mistake once on a table. I made a table, finished it with Osmo. Then they wanted the middle larger, so I had to add a piece. Forgot about my finish. I finished it with Odie's oil. You can clearly see the difference in the finish.
Is it a difference in texture or gloss or color? What is the difference?
Color and gloss. The Osmo almost felt like an slicker, like it goes in the grain, almost like a grain filler. Odie's oil just it's a different, looks different.
Okay, then we're wrong to guess that they're similar. Okay.
No,
Anybody else on this?
Odie's must think they're like Osmo because they jacked their price up incredibly. I was shocked when I went to buy my next bottle of it. It was like, used to be 40 some bucks. It's up to 60 some now. It's ridiculous.
John Wilson was trying to talk. Are you still got something to say on this?
Yeah, I thought that Osmo was a direct competitor to the Waterlocks. That was the way I always had grouped it, but I guess they're different from the way you're describing it. The Odie's I agree that it's different entirely. That's my experience with it.
I,
And then,
I think the Osmo other floor finishes are a direct competitor to the Waterlocks, which also was a floor finish. But
Yeah.
this top oil is something different. They make it for countertops and cutting boards.
and that was always that was Dad's thing way back when you wrote it down or you sold the bowl or you sold the table or whatever the heck you were selling, you wrote down what finish you put on it, because if and when it ever came back, you were sitting there shaking your head with, well, what in the Jesus is this? Because you never knew what Joe Public was throwing on the table, bowl, chair, whatever the case may be. So write it down and, oh, I'll remember. You never remember.
You
just
never do.
no. And then to the point I was trying to make, don't be afraid to shove those scraper blades farther into those handles. You'll reduce the vibration, and you need that super fine. Use a card scraper. I mean, we used to use card scrapers way back when. Use that curved card scraper and use your Veritas burr. That card scraper can put on a phenomenal finish. And then don't think you're immediately finishing. Use the sandpaper. That's all I had to say.
Okay, good comment. Anybody else on this?
Yeah, I was in full agreement with Mike Peace and the fellow just now that commented on the card scrapers and putting a burr on it. I've one of my little hobbies is micro photography. This is a cheap variable microscope, up to 2,000 they claim. But if you look at the edge, and Mike Peace described, it's a smoother and I believe a more consistent burr rather than the ragged edge you get from the grinder. And I'm just in love with burnishing. I think it's a great way to get a burr and to get a more consistent and I believe a more robust turner. So thanks, guys.
Anybody else?
The question is, what grinding wheel are you using before you do that? Stone or CBN?
CBN.
No, it's CBN. I think it's a 120, maybe a 180. I've forgotten, but it's a CBN.
Yeah, 180 seems to be people's preferred, most of them for a burr off the grinding wheel. Does anybody use a stone wheel anymore? Jim, you still use stone wheels?
Just on my standard scrapers to lift the burr on them, or to reshape a tool. But I'm using CBN for final cut, final sharp.
We can't call you Stone Age Jim then.
Yep. You could, but
he's funnel Jim.
Yeah, I've got two grinders, one with stone wheel and one with CBN.
part of the problem is I use my shop for other things, and I need one stone on my grinder because I only have one grinder.
Yeah, I find that stone allows you to reshape a tool much better without damaging your CBN wheels. And the CBN I've got is 180 and a 240.
I have a coarse CBN mounted on the same second grinder as an old stone wheel, but I never use the stone wheel anymore. I always just use the CBN. I just have it there to balance the grinder. It has to have a second wheel.
There's less dust with the CBN in there.
Absolutely. I collect the dust with magnets too. I don't want to be breathing that.
Yeah.
I got magnets mounted below the wheels, below the tool rests on all my grinders. And I got a lot of expensive steel in the form of magnet dust. I think I'm going to put it in a bottle and add oil and see what that see if I can make the thing like you see at the science show.
I would probably pour it in epoxy, John, if you don't have a use for it.
You could do that too. Okay, anybody else, or should we go to see what people want to show us with their hands up? We haven't got a lot of hands today, but maybe some of you who haven't been raising your hand will see an opportunity here and get yourselves up on the screen. Let's see, Ray, what do you want to do today?
Hey, John. Let me see if I can get this to work. I've just got a couple of pictures. I just want to share these pictures. I thought interesting. Just go with this. This is a 3/4 scale tractor, Farmall M, built by this Donald Miller in Canandaigua, New York. Took him 2 years. And so he built this. It was just interesting for us. They're down here in Lancaster County. I'm just going to blast through this so you can see this. He took many trips to the hardware store. And the thing is, it's all wood. So
we'll go back to the picture so we can ask you some questions about it.
Okay, let's do this one.
That's the one. Can you make that bigger?
No, that's right. I may get this one. This one's a little bit bigger.
That's it. That's the good one. Okay.
The
I can
tires,
maybe make that a little bigger too.
The tires are wood, and what he did is he couldn't get the finish. The finish wasn't right, so he painted it with a rubber compound. He described what it was, but so when you feel it, it feels like a tire, but it's wood. The grill, if you look at the front, that was one of the hardest parts because he had to bend that. That wood is bent, and to make the grill shape, and he handmade the bearings for it. You can't sit on it. Says you can't sit on it because the support for the seat is done. Everything is done to scale. So if you sit on it, the wood won't hold the weight like metal will. But he rolls it around. He takes it out, takes it to shows, and I saw that, and I just figured that a 2-year project. We get into stuff sometimes, and people are saying, "Oh, I'm having such a hard time with this." I saw this. I gotta give this guy credit.
Did you go visit him? Did you go and visit him?
No, I get Lancaster Farming newspaper, and it showed up in a newspaper, and I looked at it, and I said, "Well, okay, he did it scale." I thought he built one out of metal. The guys do that with the steam tractors, and I got reading through it. There's no metal. And it's like, no. And he talked about, and the hardest thing ended up being the grill. And the only metal he has, he uses screws, nuts and bolts are metal. He couldn't get the plug wires. He couldn't get the plug wires to bend. So he had to use an actual spark plug wire. So I had to laugh because it got down to that. It's like, for most people, the plug wire would not be the issue.
Well, also,
what kind of wood? What kind of wood? Did he identify any of the wood?
No, it just made out of wood. That's all he said. But he's a farmer, ex-farmer. I guess he grew up on a farm, and he just got that in his head that he always had one. He made one 3/4 scale.
Very cool.
So that's it.
Okay. Any other questions for Ray? Okay. John, thanks, Ray. Good find. John Chalikian, what do you got? What do you have today?
Well, I just wanted to talk about another advantage to going to the Lancaster Area Symposium. I was lucky enough to win a day with David Souza and have a class with him. So last Saturday, I went up to his house in Gilbertsville, Pennsylvania. And so I had a wonderful day with him. Fantastic guy. He's been turning since the 90s. He's been a AAW demonstrator and does a variety of, he's done pretty much everything from hollowing. He's not doing that anymore. He does big bowls. His shop is in his basement, and he must have had hundreds of blanks rough turned, and he sells, and he also has a regular job, so he's got a tremendous amount of energy because he does 40 hours and then he comes home and he turns.
You got
so
pictures?
The first thing
you got pictures there?
No, I don't have pictures. I just have some things that I did. Okay. First thing, when we first got in touch with each other, he had me turn a dozen eggs, just using the 3/8 spindle gouge or detail gouge, and everything had to be off of the tool, no sanding. So I did some of this, and the ends that's cut, if I sanded it, I could have gotten that end off.
Did you do them? All with a gouge, or were some with a skew or a roughing gouge?
Nope, just a detail gouge, a 3/8 detail gouge. Could not use anything else. I did use different things to, starting off with a square blank. Once I got the thing round, then I didn't want to beat up my detail gouge, rounding things up. So he basically wanted to see what control and what kind of a finish that I could get with the tool. And he was, he said that I did good with that. And the first thing we did, we sat down and we talked, showed me some of his stuff, and we talked, wanted to know where, what I wanted to accomplish for that day, and told me about some of the stuff that we did. Started off turning a bunch of beads and coves. A friend asked me, whenever he does a seminar or something or other, the question is, what did I come away with? So that made me stop and think. And the thing that I came away with was, and I knew these things, but he really drove it home, was raising starting off a cut with the bevel, and then raising the handle and the tool control and moving the body. We talked a whole bunch about that. We talked a lot about design and a variety of things. Then we, after doing a bunch of different things, we turned a bowl or a lidded box. We talked about texturing. It's not a deep bowl. He uses just a spray lacquer and wax. So we did that. And we also worked on some, he showed me a real quick way of doing spinners or tops and texturing. And I changed my location. So hang on 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to change locations of my top, but we did texturing, did some chowder work, and he does shows, and he can sell 100, he said, a show, but he also sells $1,500 bowls. Very good. And he also cored a bowl for me. They're like a 17-inch bowl. He's a fantastic guy. I probably got there about 9 o'clock, and I left a little bit before 7. So it was, and we did take a nice lunch, and it was a great experience. A big thanks to the Lancaster Woodturning Symposium and my lucky day for winning that, winning the raffle. He's a great guy. If you ever want to get some real good lessons.
What did he use to core? What was his core?
He uses his is a McNaughton. I think I'm saying that right.
Yep.
Yeah, he said he's had that for a long, long time, and it's kind of wearing down the end on his tool. But yeah, he does a lot of it. He used to do well. The Wood Turning Center has at least one of his hollow forms, and I think a few other places, a few other pieces. But now he's doing pretty much bowls, and smaller things. He does smaller items, for sale. He had a nice. I didn't get pictures of it, but just a kind of a disc with holding a candle, but he's got some beautiful texturing in there and decorations and things along those lines.
The bowl core, the bowl that he cored out for you, you've got that there to show us?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, he kept that. He's going to use that.
Okay.
Yeah. he'll be using that.
Any other
But
questions more questions for John? Okay, thanks very much.
I missed the guy's name you were talking about. I had to step away for a second.
David Souza, Souza.
Okay. Gilbertsville is not very far from here. It's somewhere north of Lancaster, I think.
Yeah, it's east of Lancaster and
okay,
perhaps a little. Yeah, I mean, I'm just north of Philadelphia, and it's about an hour, about 30 miles. So it's probably midway between the two.
Yeah.
It's right off of Route 73.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Gerald.
Just a real quick one. That would be referring back to last week's discussion on what tools would you use to teach a beginner. And I think we missed one very important thing. Doesn't matter what the tool is, make sure it's extremely sharp. That helps develop the skill so you're not forcing the tool into the work too.
What would your minimum toolkit be? Remind us of that.
I use Doug Thompson's gouges, mostly bowl gouges. I try a tool. If it doesn't work right, then I go to something else. But yeah, I would say just pretty much what everyone else has said. You need a parting tool, you need a skew, and you need a gouge.
Would you have a roughing down gouge as well? Okay. Questions for Garrett? For Gerald? Okay, let's do Randy.
Hi, everybody. The Susquehanna Woodturner has its meeting next Tuesday evening. We are going to be doing a hands-on, concentrating on bowls and hollow forms, but everybody is welcome. And I am ramping up to make pens tomorrow, or I'm sorry, Saturday is Veterans Day. And so I am ramping up to make some more batches of pens, and this is the batch that I'm working on right now. And so that's about maybe, I don't know how many, 20 pens or so. And those are the ones that are in the process at the moment. The tubes are glued in, and they're waiting to be cleaned up and the ends trimmed. I also have another piece of wood that I'm going to turn into pens. Did I do that right? It didn't work. And that'll be, I figured it out quickly, doing math in my head. That's about 42 pens worth.
What's the species?
It's just a maple board.
Maple, okay.
When I'm making pens in a batch mode like this, I go to Woodcraft. I buy a standard piece of 3/4 inch wood, take it home, strip it on my table saw, and then I have a cross slide, and I measure the blanks out, and I cut them and make pens. So it's actually not that difficult if you do them in batch mode like this. You can do, like I worked for about 3 hours yesterday and made those blanks that you see that are already cut up to this point.
So let me ask you a little bit about pens while you're here. Is there quality differences in the mechanisms? Can you get some really good quality mechanism, or is it all pretty much the same?
There are only 2 or 3 OEMs, or manufacturers. Everybody else resells pens. But just like everything else, yes, there is a difference. There are very high grade pens Like this is a medium, this is a Baron pen. This is my personal pen. I've had this for probably 10 years at least. They do make slimline pens like this one. And this is what all I make as for the troops. I'm a member of Freedom Pens Project.
So,
in fact,
so that mechanism, the slimline, that's like a good quality mechanism?
it is adequate.
Ah, okay.
It is cheap. Pen kits range, and the slimlines used to be like $3 per. Now they're up to like $5 or a little more than that. And I have a box here that's all finished. This is 20 kits, or 20 pens done and ready to send out to Freedom Pens.
Show us a couple of them. Hold a couple of them up.
Let me open them up.
Are those lines like burned on?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And what's
Got
the
a
finish?
small notch in the blank with a skew tip, and then burning wires to burn the things in. It's got some, as you can see, it has some curve to it, and in the middle I just put a notch.
And do you finish them?
Yes.
What's the finish?
Depending upon where I'm at, I usually use CA glue, thin, because it does put a very hard finish on the pen, and it keeps the pen from picking up dirt.
So is that like one coat or multiple coats?
I usually put 2 or 3 coats on over a period of about maybe a half an hour to an hour.
Do you sand them in between?
No.
Do you sand the top coat?
No. Actually, all I do with them is I take some 4/0 steel wool and go over them. My own preference, okay, I know shiny sells, but this is my own preference. If I have a wooden pen, I want it to look and feel like wood, not plastic.
So I want to know more about the finish, though, if you wouldn't mind. Is that like from the little Starbond bottles with the nozzle on them, and you just squirt it on?
Yeah, it just takes about actually very little, maybe 2 drops per blank. I use actually stuff that I get at the hobby store. It's called Fun Foam. It is a closed cell sheet of foam about 11 by 17. The CA glue does not stick to it, and it does not soak into the CA glue. So you use a lot less CA glue.
And you use that like to wipe it on?
Yep. And you don't even have to work it very much. Now, one of the things about CA glue, it will glue almost anything to almost anything. So, okay, hands up. Who's done that?
So that's a real trade secret there. I mean, I've never heard that before, and that has been my question about CA finishes. How do you keep from getting yourself stuck to them?
I wear gloves when I'm handling the CA glue. I have nitrile gloves I get at Home Depot or at the Harbor Freight. But what you do when you're finishing a pen is I have cone bearings. They are made of high impact plastic, and it will generally not allow the CA to stick to the mandrels.
So that would be like Delrin or high density polyvinyl.
Yes. You can actually buy them from different suppliers on the internet. Woodcraft has them as well.
And then you use the Fun Foam to wipe the CA glue and coat the wood with it.
Yep. And it only takes 30 seconds. And essentially you're done. Then I leave the lathe running it. Oh, by the way, now listen to this. This is important. When you do this, no more than 500 RPM. More than that, you're going to decorate yourself.
You'll get CA on your glasses and you'll never get it off.
That's correct. Absolutely never come off.
How would I know this?
Yes,
I suspect,
don't ask me how I know this.
I suspect you don't use any of the setting spray either on the CA.
No.
You let it dry naturally, right?
Nope. I turn the lathe and set it to about 400 or 500 RPM, and I just walk away and prepare some more blanks. And when I come back, put another coat on, and I do that like 2 or 3 times, and I'm done.
Is Fun Foam a brand name, or are there other foams that do the same thing?
I think Fun Foam is a brand name, but almost every hobby store that is around will have it. It's like about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it comes in various colors.
1/16 of an inch, maybe.
Yeah, it's not
What I
quite-
get's a little thinner. The Fun Foam I get about 1/16 of an inch.
Okay. Yeah, it's just the important part is that it's closed cell foam. That means CA doesn't penetrate it. So when you're putting the foam on, you don't have to worry about your hands getting it. Yep, that's it.
Okay, what are you using that for, Mike? You're muted.
Vacuum chuck.
And that's Fun Foam on the vacuum chuck.
Yep.
Is it like airtight?
Like Randy said, it's a closed cell foam.
Okay.
Yeah, air and water nothing will penetrate the foam.
Okay. Do you also do CA finishing, Mike? That's why I pinned you up here. Do you do
No.
CA? You don't. Okay.
I avoid using CA for anything that I have a good alternative for. I don't like the smell. I don't like it sticking to my hands. I don't like it stinging my eyes. I don't like the idea that it may sensitize me one of these days. So I'd be like Dave Ellsworth and walk by a classroom and have to rush by if they've got an open bottle of CA glue.
Yes, absolutely. It will sensitize you to the CA glue over time, long time. But there are pen makers that absolutely cannot be even in the same room with CA glue. But I have a vacuum dust collector, and that dust collector hose is right behind the pen blank when I'm applying CA. It gets all that fumes out of there. So I don't get any fumes at all. I did get some stinging in my nose and eyes yesterday when I was gluing all those together because I did not have my dust collector running.
Pretty good intro, Randy. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
On filters, I discovered that the normal filters, like I'm using in my power cap for dust, does not protect, and I expected that later, from the CA fumes. I smelled it right through when I was shaving it after it had set. I could smell it right through it. So I guess it's you need a HEPA filter or something to keep it out. Charcoal. Ah, good idea.
That would be right. Yeah, and some of the respirators have that, you know.
This is John.
Yeah.
Hi. Dave Souza talked about. We talked a little bit about CA finishes, and by the way, he's also one of the 2 people that started the Keystone Woodturning Club. But he had a disagreement with somebody who's a pen turner about CA glue. He said, "Don't use CA glue on your pens because it's going to, in 5 years, you're going to see that the finish is ruined." So 5 years later, at a Keystone club, this gentleman comes in, spreads out like 10 pens, and he says, "Whenever Dave Souza tells you something, listen." And all the pens, the finishes were all cloudy and not good.
Huh.
People had given back the pens to be refinished. So just a point that the CA doesn't seem to work. I know there's a lot of people that use it. There might be a factor of having to really clean up the pen, the wood with alcohol or something to get all the oils out, but it's not, may not be the best finish.
I've lost your picture. Anyway, that's been my opinion about it as a finish too, but I don't have any experience to back that up. Randy, show us, what do you got there?
This is a couple of small bowls that I made.
Those are
from mahogany, and these are CA finishes. I didn't know if I could do it, so these are just small finger bowls, and I have 3 of them.
Okay. How long ago did you do that?
Oh, I don't know if these, I put a date on them or not. 2017.
So that's 6 years. And
So that was 6 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an open question. I think the CA glue formulas have changed as well. So.
Yeah, but yeah, I just try to get and this pen, this is at least 10 to 12 years old. And it's the one that lays on my desk whenever I need to use a pen, that's what I use. So I don't know. I know that if you make the finish too thick, it will develop cracks.
I would think that would be right, yeah.
But other than that, yeah.
Okay, Bruce, your turn.
So I have an unusual discussion topic, actually. I had a request recently to train a visually impaired person for turning. I am 100% sure the visually impaired and blind can turn. Where I'm concerned or feel inadequate is me as the instructor. I did reach out to AAW and find some materials. They actually have a manual called Accessible Lathe Manual, which helps instructors provide visual cues for things rather than what we normally do. And they gave me a contact who is a blind turner. But I was wondering if there were folks here that have the experience from the instructor's side to deal with this. And I'm certainly willing to try, but there's clearly a learning curve for me, and I'm willing to do that. But I wondered if others had already tried this. Anybody?
We had a blind member, unfortunately didn't stay around very long. At our hands-on, I spent a couple of evenings working with them. It was a humbling experience. You know, the most difficult part I found was just establishing the tool contact with whatever the object was and at whatever state.
I mean, I haven't done it on a lathe. I've taken and guided folks that are hearing impaired or blind skiing at a high level, but it's that tactile touch. We had the guy that was hearing impaired on the lathe, and he literally had to touch the lathe to feel what was going on. And I'm just thinking to myself, it was the same thing when we were skiing. I had to be ultra verbal to him to gain the feedback to provide direction, and then the feel. I mean, it's got to be set projects. You're not. I'm going to stop talking. How about that? There's
that's all right.
skill set there,
I think
but
it's a
you
very
need to be
valid
more verbal.
point. Is the tactile piece of it?
Yeah.
The AAW manual, which, by the way, they had put together through a nonprofit in Minnesota a number of years ago, and they did a pretty nice job. But nothing substitutes experience. but they even show a lot of times where the turner is being instructed to touch the piece while it's spinning, and they put this big caveat after it's round, of course. But you know, there's still having your fingers over the other side of the tool rest is a scary part for me with sight. So again, I'm the inadequate piece of this formula here, so I'm just looking for other help, and I will talk to a couple of visually impaired turners and see what I can get from there. But it was the instructor end that I really was interested in.
Scanning.
Bruce, there is a lady on the International Pen Turner site, and she volunteers at a Center for the Blind, and she helps them to make pens.
Well, that's a great start. If you can forward that contact to me, I would appreciate that.
I briefly looked for her user ID on our site, but I can't find it at the moment. But I'll make a note of it and send it to you.
Terrific, thank you.
I mean, just thinking about it and trying to be positive, and not that I'm not positive, but you're working with cylindrical work moving forward. You're not starting from a roughing stage. I think that would be the starting point. I just can't see it otherwise, but I'm still learning, so maybe I have things to learn. But small projects, I don't see, if you're dealing with one chuck, actually you'd need the tailstock support just for the safety.
I think the limit is us. I think there are a number of blind turners who are excellent turners and demonstrators. It's us. So.
I think that's a very good point. It is us. Yep.
I think you'll learn a lot, Bruce. I think it'll be a very interesting experience for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Stu, what do you have today?
Okay, well, I don't have a whole heck of a lot to show other than my hospital bed.
Oh no, what happened to you, Stu?
What?
Yeah, at 2 o'clock yesterday morning, I was transferred into the University of Alberta Hospital. I have some heart conditions. At 4:30 yesterday, I had 2 stents installed.
Wow, well, we wish you the very best in the speedy.
Here's my little gig. That's my damage to less than a little cut that I'd get from my lathe. Anyway, I want to say, you guys, if you think you got a problem, follow through and check it out. I was at Tuesday all day, a bolt turning seminar that we had from with our club for 6 new members, and I had the day all right, but I didn't feel all that great. By the time I got home, I had some other things that I tried to do, and I just felt instantly weak and chest pains and stuff. And I went in the house and I told my wife to phone 911, and then 15 minutes later, I was in the ambulance and went to Stony Plain Hospital, checked me out, and they transferred me here to the U of A and followed through with what they had to do. And you know, I guess I could say I was scared shitless, but oh well, I got through it, and you know, everybody can, because it's really not that big of a deal for what you have to go through. So if you get the symptoms, get checked.
Absolutely, and call 911. It's 3 years ago, October the 18th, when I died and was saved by the paramedics. And
there you go.
So I got three within 90 minutes of my heart attack, and 1 the next day.
Cool. Well, we wish you a speedy recovery, Stu, and back to the shop.
For sure.
Yeah, we're good. I hope to get out of here today, but I don't know for sure, but I'm not too worried about it. They're treating me pretty good, so here I am. At least I got on my Zoom this morning. And I got to tell you something else. At 1:30, 1 o'clock this morning, I got a text from Bert. He said, "Move over, buddy. I've been emerged to U of A." Bert is in here too.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
He collapsed on the floor, and his wife had to call the ambulance for him. And he came to when they were peeling him off the floor, got him into the hospital. And he's, they told him that he had a blood clot in his lung. So he's waiting for a bed, further testing. So I haven't, personally run into him yet in here, but I'm going to track him down.
Carl is holding up an ECG as well.
Oh boy.
Sorry?
What do you got there, Carl? Oh yeah, that was your flatline piece.
Yeah, we don't want to see any of those.
No, we don't need any of those. Thanks for showing it again, though. Well,
Okay,
Bowman,
anyway, move on.
yeah, Bowman, take us home. What do you got today? You got about 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's probably about good. So I talked last week about doing this insert in the bottom of a bowl. And Mike was challenging me, I think, because this is what do you call face grain, the bowl itself, but I was putting an end grain foot in it. I had a lot of problems doing it, so it didn't quite turn out the way I want. But the bowl, I beaded the bottom insert, so it gave a little bit of a foot there. I want to show you the actual. This is the shape of the bowl. This is flat on the base, but that's how much it twisted. This is persimmon that I got in the May or June, and I rough turned it and threw it in my drying cabinet. When it came out, it was so wonky I could hardly spin it. I mean, it was like a propeller running on the lathe. But I had to hand sand everything. I couldn't, unless I went back to 100 RPM, then I could hand sand it with paper by hand. I couldn't use a power on it.
So, Jim, my question is, did it take longer to fix it than it would have taken to turn a new bowl?
And that's a very good question, Mike. I've thought about that. You know, I always joke kind of about being the funnel guy. I've gotten to the point where, funnel or not, I might cut some things out just to have a chance to do something stupid like this. You know, it's certainly not production. I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time in this stupid bowl, but it was fun. So I'm not making money trying to sell it. And you're absolutely right. The challenge for me was, though, that this wood was special. This had been turned from a friend's persimmon tree, and I was keeping it for that reason alone. I tend to not have a lot of nice wood around, and I don't buy wood. My wife is not happy with the fact of how much I spend on tools. What my point was, whether I turn a hole through the bottom of a bowl, I find it worth the challenge, and sometimes I'll drill out the bottom just to put a foot on or something like that. But Mike, I hear you.
I think you got some good wood choices there of woods that go nice together too. I think that's important when you do that. Some woods don't go so well.
That's partly what I like to do. Find out wood good. Somebody the other day was talking about putting purple heart on cherry, and I thought, ooh, that doesn't work color-wise for me. So.
Speaking of colors, though, I do want to acknowledge Toby, who gave us a fabulous club demo on Tuesday night on his basic method of turning a natural edge bowl. It was very informative, and it's always great to see somebody who does this in small production to see just how efficient they get, how fast, how little wasted motion there is, and how few extra cuts kind of searching for where the bowl is. Guys like Toby, guys like Raffin, guys like Mike Peace, they go straight to it. And it's very, very good, very excellent to see. We might see some of that on Saturday morning. We're having open shop at the Lancaster place out in New Holland. So anybody who's in the Lancaster area, it's 9 to noon. Come on out. I'm going to be turning some little tops with a skew. I think there's several other people planning to play around and demo some stuff, and good fellowship. There's wood available for sale, wood blanks of various kinds. So see you all.
John, a quick question.
Yeah.
That epoxy. I have epoxy and I have been for at least a month now, and it's still tacky. How can I fix that problem? Could I put it in a microwave or?
No way. You're screwed, to put the word bluntly. What it means is you probably didn't get the ratios right when you mixed it. What if it won't set? It won't set.
So could I skim
How
over
old
it?
was the starting resin in the bottle?
I tried reading the instructions and I thought I had it right, but something didn't come out right.
Was it
How
old?
old was the resin in the bottle?
How old was it?
I couldn't tell you. I bought that brand new. So it might have been on the shelf for a while.
Yeah, most epoxies will have a use by date, or particularly after you open it, it goes bad, usually within a year, but sometimes longer. Jim's comment that the ratios may be wrong, but it didn't get enough of the cross linker in there, and there's really no way to fix that after the fact. You should cut your losses and move on. This would be the right recommendation.
You couldn't put a skim coat over it?
Well, then it would probably be soft in the middle. You'll never penetrate and get it right. So it's really not worth investing more of your time into it.
Here's the other thing to keep in mind. Get the ratios right. I'm not talking about the thousandths of a percent, but get it right, but then mix it carefully. And like I take my wooden paddle and I scrape around the edge of the container I'm mixing it in. I do not use the paddle on a drill. It just puts way too many bubbles in, unless you have gallons that you're pouring. But I just stir it 3 to 5 minutes and scrape the bottom, because inevitably what happens, say hardener or might be in a glob somewhere and it won't settle up, so.
Again, I am in violent agreement with Jim that you need to mix it. And then what I usually do after it's mixed is pour it into another container and mix it in that second container. And usually that makes a big difference in getting it right. The other key thing is usually a lot of these epoxies will have minimum temperatures that they must be at to cure properly. And usually it's at least 70 degrees Fahrenheit, sorry, Canadians. And sometimes it's as high as 75. They want you to have that as a minimum temperature so that you really cure properly. But if you have a cold shop, it also won't cure.
Okay. Does that help you out, Jack?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Or we'll see you Saturday morning if you're in Lancaster.
Yep. See you all next week.
Wood.